I have published 2 studies now, and so I've actually been measuring the changes. So I've been using DNA and also using QEEG to do brain mapping. What I do a pre-DNA test before they go through our program, and then do a post-DNA test, minimum of 30 days all the way up. We just got the results back. Just got it here from a guy that he's 27 years old. That's his chronological age. According to his pre-DNA test, he was 30.76 years of age. Now, this guy's had not only his own personal trauma, but tremendous family trauma as well. So he's actually almost 4 years older than his actual age. That's what the trauma is doing to him. And he's only 27. So after he goes through the program, we measure his DNA again, right? And this is all through blood tests. His actual age went down to 23.5.
Wow.
That's how much age he took off. His
Beautiful.
blood age prior was 31.77. Afterwards was 24.6. His brain age went from 29.8 to 26, closer to his age. The thing that was the most impressive, though, was his immune system. His immune system showed that he was actually prior 35.35. That's how much stress. He'd put 8 years of stress on his immune system. Now it's at 26.9, closer to his age. So we've got the studies to prove that we're physically changing the system when we resolve the trauma. And then on the brain mapping, on the neuroplasticity, I did brain mapping pre and post, and we had our youngest in the study was 15, our oldest was 63. So a wide range of dealing with anxiety, depression, post-traumatic stress, and depression. And going through the entire thing, I brought in an independent guy to run the numbers because I don't want to run my own numbers. So he ran the numbers and he said, well, I've been doing this for 30 years. He says, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't believe that you're going to get the changes you think you're going to get. I've heard a lot about what you're doing. He says, if you get a 10% change in neuroplasticity, I think that would be a home run for you. He says, I don't know if you'll get 10, but if you got 10, that would be a home run. You know what we got? 45.3% change in neuroplasticity.
Amazing.
And we've that study. That's what you're just talking about. The mind and body are designed to heal. All you have to do is reset the system and it'll heal.
As long as you create the right environment for it to
Optimal
heal.
conditions is what I talk about.
Thank
You've
you.
got to get the
Yes.
brain into optimal condition to heal. They never get it into optimal condition. So
Right.
that's what I do is I get the mind into optimal condition and it'll heal itself. And the reason I did the testing is because, as you know, people say, I feel better. I know I feel better, but we needed a way to measure it because a lot of times people would say, this just sounds too good to be true.
Right.
Right. And
Again, the programming. Yeah.
yeah. And then afterwards they go, I feel different, but this is being able to quantify it. And you can't argue it because it's not my test. It's an independent company providing the pre and post testing. So it's not my own numbers, it's independent testing. And you can't beat that.
Yes.
And I love that
Exciting.
you worked with a 27-year-old and that 27-year-old is looking to do this. And I can well imagine that the results are even more profound the older someone gets because the trauma's been in their system for longer, therefore causing damage for a longer amount of time. And then what I love sharing with people is it's never too late. You could be in your 60s thinking, oh, I'm in my 60s, it's too late. No, it's not. Our human body is so forgiving when it comes to healing that
Yep.
do it now because, you might be in your 60s and your, age on all of those tests might be in its 70s or 80s because of the life that you've lived. And after doing the healing work, guess what? Maybe it's back in its 50s and you just gained back
Yeah.
10 years.
Yep. And that's what this is proving. I had another lady, she was part of our study. She was 58.6 years of age. That was her chronological age. But she was in the cosmetic business. So she took amazing care of herself. She ate right. She exercised. She did everything right. Her pre-test showed she was 56. So she took almost 3 years off of her life by doing really, really, good things for her body and for her mind.
Right.
But she had a lot of trauma. So she goes through the program Afterwards, we got a 40% reduction in inflammation, and the immune system increased by 40 to 50%. But her telomere age went down to 47 years of age, 10 years younger,
Younger. Yeah.
just by getting the trauma out. And yet everything else she did was still doing well, but she had even more capacity to heal.
It's sad to see the state of the world sometimes because it's almost like people give up. They'll
Mhm.
take someone in a white coat, their opinion more over than, their own internal wisdom because they start questioning themselves. Right? When
Yeah.
people get diagnosis for any disease, that's it. They think that's the end. And we always challenge them like, well, who told you that? Be curious, right? If you stay in a state of curiosity, well, what else is possible? Have you heard of people, healing themselves from stage 4 cancers? Absolutely, right? That's Dr. Hammer's work. He had 70,000 brain scans of people healing themselves from stage 4 cancer within the right environment. Now, when you're in an environment that's constantly in fight or flight because of all this trauma that you have and all this programming, then of course that's not a very healthy environment for your body to heal. If you start putting all these drugs in, you're affecting the environment. And so if you can
Yep.
clean the environment out, that's what we say with timeline therapy, it clears the space. Now let's bring in the resources that your body now naturally produces for it to now heal itself. And not just on a physical level, on a mental, emotional, and then eventually your spiritual level, right? Because it's all connected. There's so much power up in the quantum field that people don't realize they have access to that they can bring down into this reality. And that's, a bigger conversation. However, people just need to, I always encourage people to stay in a state of curiosity instead of a state of fear. Because you can imagine what is going wrong, but you can also imagine what is possible and how it could go right. Because it's a choice either way.
That's what I'm talking about with the DNA. We turn on and off different genes. We're not changing the DNA, we're changing the methylation in the genes. And so when the system goes into fight or flight, it's going to change its system in order to adapt to the fear. And then it's going to turn off certain genes. It's going to increase the inflammation genes because that's a cell danger response. And it's
Mhm.
going to lower the immune system genes in order to deal with the fight or flight state that you're in. But it gets stuck
Yeah.
because the subconscious is operating in the present and it keeps looking at this old data. It's a glitch and it
Right.
keeps trying to get something to get done. Chances are you can't do anything about something that happened 20 years ago, but your mind doesn't know that and it's going to keep calling for the action.
That brings us into the whole conversation of epigenetics as well, right? Again, the
Yep.
programming is that, if your mother had breast cancer, you're going to get breast cancer, cancel, cancel, cancel. Or, your father had heart disease, that means you're going to go down that path. And the reality is that we now know that it's less than 5% of all dis-ease has a direct genetic link. Everything else is coming back to the lifestyle that we're living. And as you said, what is our stress level? What's driving the inflammation levels? And if we have our inflammation at a healthy level, then the switch to that disease never gets turned on. However, because of
Right.
high stress, poor sleep, high fear levels, our body's running on limited resources. It can't do everything and it's depleted. Even the nutrition, we're nutritionally depleted. And so the body doesn't have the energy to do everything that it needs to be doing. And our inflammation levels go up and up and up. And then the switch to the dis-ease turns on.